Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a terrific day ahead of you. In today's video, I've got for you whether or not we should be avoiding or buying Mohamed Salah for Game Week 1, as well as whether Florian Wirtz and Hugo Ekitike could provide sufficient cover should we choose to avoid the King for Game Week 1. Now, this is serving as part 1 of the Mohamed Salah series, and you will have part 2 in due course. It also excludes Liverpool from a defensive standpoint primarily, as I'm really focusing on Mohamed Salah and to an extent Florian Wirtz as well. If you have been enjoying the content around here, or if this is your first time, then do click the subscribe button below. It just takes you a couple seconds and I'm greatly appreciative. And equally, if you enjoy the video, hit that like button as well. Again, greatly appreciated, and I'm sure the good karma will come back in kind. Without anything else needing to be said, let's hop into the video. So how have we even got here? How have we got to the point where the best FPL player of all time, coming off his best season of all time, is being questioned, increasingly so as preseason goes on? Well, on screen, what you can see is what I would say their argument is, right, as to why you could potentially go without. And it's really just encapsulated in these points. 1, he hasn't scored in preseason. And to link with that, number 2, his output and performance standard has significantly dropped off since he signed the new contract. The third point is new signings such as Florian Wirtz and Hugo Ekitike will create a larger spread of output in the team, basically meaning both his floor and ceiling will decline. Fourthly, he is so expensive and not buying him opens up so much, including the likes of Erling Haaland, Alexander Isak, both, Ollie Watkins, Bukayo Saka alongside Cole Palmer, alongside Florian Wirtz, so on and so on, and Erling Haaland is going to start better. So the purpose of this video is essentially to see whether or not these are in fact true and look at Florian Wirtz, not just in isolation, but in comparison to Mohamed Salah as an FPL asset to see if you really can cover him and if we can spend the 6 million elsewhere and essentially to go and get Erling Haaland. You will recall many a time last season where Mohamed Salah was found by maybe Alisson, maybe a pass from Trent Alexander-Arnold in some form of a quick release. Liverpool turned the team from front to back really quickly, and Salah is going at their last line or has an isolated situation against the fullback or maybe whoever's in his space, right? Now, firstly and foremost, full credit goes to Fatali for the visuals in this slide, and I would strongly recommend you go and follow him on X. Absolutely magnificent work, very frequent work as well. Like I said, just top all round, top guy as well. So again, I've taken the visuals from there. But what you can see is Liverpool essentially forming a 3-2 build-up structure with the keeper in the middle, and the purpose is to bait the press, bring the team onto you, and then use Gravenberch's ability on the half turn as an example to then get through it and then play into your fullback, into the other 8, maybe there's Florian Wirtz who drops, and then you have a situation where the backline can potentially be isolated by getting it into your wingers. It's not just Wirtz that could drop, Ekitike could drop, your fullbacks are now in the half spaces and they're also inverting as well. And what this does is it creates those type of quick moments that I discussed in the introduction to the video. So overall, this type of build-up structure, I think is quite positive because if you do get Salah in these type of moments, and so many will come to mind, maybe not exactly like this, but even when, for example, he's one-on-one after taking a corner, he scored one at home against Villa last year. He scored one at Anfield against United like a few seasons ago when Alisson kicked along. And if you can create these type of situations for him, and if that's what Arne Slot's aiming to do with build-up, then honestly, that's a really good sign for me because Gravenberch is very good at receiving in there. Alisson and Van Dijk in particular, and Konate as well, very comfortable on the ball. You've got some Bosley out of possession just in case anything happens. I mean, his ability to counter-press in the second is so good, right? Just to mop it up and ensure they don't concede. And then again, most important bit, it works, right? They've got the players to do it, especially like, for example, consider their fullback. Conor Bradley or Jeremy Frimpong will be both very comfortable with this role. Hugo Ekitike, who I come on to, very clean when dropping in. So getting that ball into Salah in these situations and creating attacks and quick attacks from your own goal kick, I think is something we could very feasibly see at times this season. We started with Liverpool's build-up from the goal kick and Alisson functioning as a central centre-back. Well, now when the ball's higher, and as often it's going to be, you're not going to have Alisson as central centre-back, and you won't really have him at all. So now you function with 10 as opposed to 11, meaning that one man is going to drop out the front line, so it becomes a 3. You're still going to have the rest of the structure though, right? So that really remains the same. It's just you have one less man in the front line. And I will come on to why that could actually be a little bit beneficial for Salah in these instances. What I expect here is, let's just say it's a midfield of Gravenberch, central centre-back, with the centre-back splitting. Szoboszlai and Wirtz. Both Szoboszlai and Wirtz maybe drop in to form a staggered pivot of sorts, and then one usually has the responsibility of receiving more so than the other. Maybe you leverage Florian Wirtz's press resistance. Maybe you leverage for Dominic Szoboszlai's ability to, I guess, if he does lose it in these areas, get it back slightly better, just because of how good he is out of possession. So we'll see what Arne Slot does. But nonetheless, this is the generic structure and plan that I think you'll see with the fullbacks inverting into the half spaces. And when you can get them on the ball, or when one of the pivot just manages to turn the other team over and get through the press, then I think you'll see Salah not always have to operate as wide as he would in a front four, but in a front three, there's more space to occupy because you have one less man. I think you'll see him push into those half spaces. And you could also see him break beyond the last line as well, just given the general structure and the fact that maybe even Ekitike drifts and creates some space for him, whereas with the front four, slightly different dynamic. So just because they have one less man in these type of build-up situations and they're still going to bait the press, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing in combination with his quality, right? Someone else doing this task, I'm not so sure, but him in particular, I think it's a good thing. And I essentially just wanted to show that not all the time he's going to be receiving so wide and functioning as like wide type of creator. Or if he's going to score, he's going to have to do so much from a wide zone. To build on what you just saw, in this image, you can see Mohamed Salah in between left centre back and left wing back. And it's a back five he's playing, so it's slightly different. And Liverpool are using a slightly different build-up structure. But the point is that he's not always going to be stuck to that touchline, functioning in this wide creator role, even in earlier stages of build-up. There will be times where he comes into these more central zones, and just in being there initially can create such a good situation for himself and yourself as an owner of him, because eventually the ball gets played out to the right back. He maintains his position in the channel. The ball gets cut across to Florian Wirtz, who's magnificent when receiving on the half turn and then carrying, as we'll come on to. And then he slips in Salah, right? Because Salah was there in the first place, and then he could profit off his initial positioning. Now, he doesn't score, should, but he doesn't, and he doesn't get the assist. But the point being is, even if it is just against back three structures like this, that's certainly beneficial to know that he's not always going to have to hold the width. And even if he does for quite a bit of the game, he's so good that I don't mind him having to operate at a high efficiency when he comes inside, because, he's functioning as a wide creator for a lot of it. Like, I back him to do it. Secondly, he can generate so many assists from these wide areas anyway. He is just so good. I just wanted to show that there's a bit of a balance. And for example, where you take Arsenal and Martinelli, and the role is far more restrictive, this isn't necessarily the case for Salah. He is going to be platformed quite well again this season, I think. We will now look at him in specifically an FPL context, just so that if you are to make the ultimate decision and go without him, you know exactly what it is you are up against, and you're confronting everything as opposed to leaving some of the scary things under the bed, so that, it makes it a slightly easier decision should you want to go there in the first place. First and foremost, let's discuss something that's actually not on this slide. When I've watched what he's done in preseason so far, I don't see a guy that's necessarily out of form. I see someone who still looks quite sharp, and on another day, if he has a rub of the green, he has a few goals. I mean, there are a couple strikes against AC Milan, which went close. There was the chance I showed you with Florian Wirtz. He could have racked up a few assists today in the game that he had that Liverpool won 3-1. So overall, I think he looks absolutely fine. Another thing is, against Milan, he had 45. Today, he had 63. So that's a good, whole other game that he could have had if he played the full game, right? So I think his minutes need to be taken into account. But for me, for a preseason fixture, definitely looks sharp enough. And if it goes right game week 1, and you don't have, for Salah, and you don't have him, the route back's very difficult, and you're probably going to be behind the 8 ball straight away. Then he's got Burnley in game week 4, and let's say you have to restructure and use transfers there, well, then you can't attack any other points that come up, and things will come up, right? They always come up. So I just think if you're going to go without him, you've just got to be absolutely sure. And I wouldn't do it off the fact that his form isn't great. I would do it more so of the fact that you think Wirtz in particular can cover him, but not for the fact that he doesn't look great. Because to me, in preseason, he looks sharp enough. But anyway, let's move on to some things. Firstly and foremost, as of now, he's the best player in the league. It's very difficult to disagree with that following what he did last season. And he's classified as a mid, right? Which we'll come on to later. He also plays for the number 1 attacking team in the league. And I think between him, Wirtz, Ekitike, and Gakpo, they're going to score so many goals. And they're just going to put teams to the sword. I wouldn't even be surprised if their average for goals is maybe something higher than we've ever seen in recent years, right? Because the league's become tougher. So I think that almost guarantees a certain floor, and his quality guarantees you a certain ceiling. Probably a feeling as well if you own him. Secondly, and as touched on in the first instance, he's a midfielder. So he's starting in front of the 8 ball in comparison to the big competitors at the higher price points, which is really what his omission would be looking to access. Erling Haaland and Alexander Isak. But for every goal and every time he keeps a clean sheet, he's winning 1 or 2 points there. And honestly, over the course of a season, that's pretty big, right? There's a reason mids have been so generous and profitable to own in the past. Thirdly, Erling Haaland, Alexander Isak, Bukayo Saka, Bruno Fernandes, the more expensive players in the game, actually I'm going to leave Cole Palmer out of this specific list, the more expensive players in the game, I don't think they were at a place where they look so attractive as options, whereby if you are to go without him, there's such a high upside to capture anyway. That's not the way I love to look at it, because at the end of the day, I would take it on, even if I thought there was minimal gain to be had, right? With the fact that I think Salah's so good, and the fact there's really just not too much reward on offer, and I'm not even sure that they can match him. I'm really not, right? I don't think Saka's going to match him personally. I'm not so sure about Haaland. We're going to look into that later once they play a few preseason games. Isak's got a few injury concerns, and obviously the transfer saga at the moment. I'm not sure where you'd be reinvesting the money to get these points in the first place. I don't think the security is anywhere near as high. And fourthly, he's got penalties and he's got better then. So I know the others do as well. So I just want to level the playing field out there. And then he just is the highest floor, highest ceiling player in the game. The number of chances he will accumulate to return and how good he is. So for me to go against him, I'll speak about in the conclusion, I think it's very, very, very challenging. If I had to go with 1 point, it would mainly be C. I just don't even think if you are to go without him, that like Saka or Haaland or Isak or Bruno Fernandes, if he's playing in the pivot, is going to put him to the sword enough to warrant the decision. We first looked at Mohamed Salah in isolation. Then we looked at him in a more relative context with the inclusion of looking at Erling Haaland, Alexander Isak, Bukayo Saka, and so on. What about his teammates? What about Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz? Starting with the latter, he's the one that I think really warrants consideration. Even maybe more so than the likes of Isak or Saka. It's Wirtz. I'm a big fan. He's a top player, right? He is a top player. And I don't imagine that the transition from the Bundesliga to the Premier League in terms of his skill set is going to be one where you see it diminish, right? You see that in other like instances, for example, players who are really good at exploiting space and behind, well, in the Premier League, you're maybe not going to get as much, and the athletes are just better. In general, there's a lot more deeper blocks to break down. So it's not as translatable. But his ability and the manner in which he can carry, he can receive on the half turn, he can go from a standing start and explode past you. The balance, the ability to ride contact and then deliver a certain quality of action with a certain strength. Haven't really seen it from a number 10 before in this specific way, right? And then ball striking from distance, and even in the box as well, but specifically I'm talking about ball striking from distance. Again, quite unique as to how good it is. That will all produce him goals and assists, right? The other thing is, from a positional standpoint, I quite like what Arne Slot's doing with him from an FPL perspective. If he is, for example, to partner the striker and run on, and he doesn't have too many build-up responsibilities, and Gravenberg and Szoboszlai, maybe the fullbacks kind of sort that out, and he does play centrally and higher, then all of a sudden I think you could certainly see him get some more goals. I think with Ekitike, he's still more inclined to take shots in like 50-50, 55-45 situations. If Isak was to come, I think you'll see him turn a little bit more into someone who's a little bit more assist-orientated. But with Ekitike there, I still think you'll get goals from him. He's also got set pieces, which is a big thing, right? Like, say you buy him and Van Dijk for the C-bet, pairing that would be huge upside if it hits. And he gets into the box enough. He will get into those advanced zones enough in the middle where he's going to get points. So I don't really doubt that he's going to get points throughout the season, right? Overall, I like it. Ekitike is clean. The thing is, he's a forward, right? I wonder if his minutes will be a little bit more managed with the fact that you also have Darwin Núñez knocking on the door. And you don't want to completely freeze him out should he be in the squad in season, because you want him in some form of resale value. Ekitike is also young, so you want to get maybe a little bit of adaptation to the league. I know that applies to Wirtz, but Wirtz is a better player in my opinion. In terms of Ekitike presence, right in the box, good. He's strong. And considering his body makeup and how long his legs are, he's still very strong and competent in these particular actions, which most people with his body type as strikers aren't. So I thought that was quite impressive. And in general, like I said, very tidy, very competent across a wide variety of different things. And I think as such, you'll see a better finisher in him than what Liverpool have had at number 9. So some of Salah's created chances will be finished off in comparison to what you've seen in the past. However, saying that, for him especially, I don't think it's as a forward and with the reduced minutes and the fact that like his translation into the league isn't going to be, I would say, isn't as secure as Wirtz is. I wouldn't have him as cover, right, for Mohamed Salah. So it really just comes down to, can Florian Wirtz now cover Mohamed Salah? And for now, my answer is still no. Because I still think that Salah's one notch higher, at least in terms of quality. And when you combine penalties and general goal threat from open play, I don't back Wirtz at the moment to put up those numbers. Especially when you think about how captainable Salah is. I think you'll be a little bit more hesitant to captain Wirtz early doors. Especially if you like him for that game week 1 fixture. Even if you don't like him for 2 or 3. I just think he can do enough damage in that alone to warrant it. And he looks sharp. He looks sharp enough. And if Wirtz does ever have to pull deeper for times during games, and you see Salah starting to get on the end of a little bit more, and he forms a really good relationship with Bradley or Frimpong, whoever's playing right back, and they start overlapping as well as underlapping for him, then I think it could be a little bit of a runaway train again. And he's going to generate probably more assists this season, just for the fact that like got better players around him. So for me, whilst I think it's close, and I really like what I see from Florian Wirtz at the moment in terms of real life, I would stick with Mohamed Salah. And that is all she wrote for this video, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And equally, make sure to drop a like on the video, both of which would be greatly appreciated. Have a terrific rest of your day, and I shall see you very, very, very soon. Thank you for all the love and support, as always. Goodbye.